So, Nick, Shavkat Rakhmonov, it's not a name that's easy to pronounce, but it's one we better get familiar with because this guy is going to be around for a long time. 27 years old, 15 fights, 15 wins, 15 finishes, making quick work of Carlston Harris. What do you think of this prospect?
That's music to my ears. You know, everybody that's a fight fan that wants to see finishes, and even if you're not a casual and you love the sport, finishes are always just the icing on the cake. That's what we want to see. We're good with decisions when they happen from time to time, but we're in this thing to see somebody win the fight. And Rakhmonov is a monster. The kick that he finished the fight with wasn't even the most flush spinning back wheel kick that we've seen, but it clearly had a lot behind it, and everything else that he was throwing was well placed, well timed, and his composure is something to really admire. He's one of those guys that is going to be a true problem for everybody at welterweight. After I watched it last night, I kind of had a glimpse into what I see in the next 24 months, and I could just see a title fight at welterweight for the belt. Khamzat Chimaev versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, or I'm botching his name, but something like that. I could just see that fight taking place. Maybe in a couple of years, it will be the right fight for the belt.
Yeah, well, these guys are very similar, right? Very similar in age. They're both undefeated, similar records in the sense that they haven't had a whole lot of fights. Both have a finishing style. Both have a super exciting style. You know, obviously, Rakhmonov is not quite the character that Khamzat Chimaev is, but he certainly is the fighter. I mean, this guy is finishing people, as you said last night, with spinning wheel kicks to the head, followed up with some great strikes. He's guillotining people. He's beating people by rear naked choke. If you look back at his M1 days, he has a win via body punch. I mean, the guy is absolutely a finishing machine. Some beautiful inside leg trips to takedowns last night. I mean, he showed us a lot. There's, much like Said Nurmagomedov showed us in 41 seconds a couple of weeks ago, this guy showed us in a handful of minutes all of the skills that he possesses, and boy, are they deep. He's a master of sport in Sambo. This guy, the sky's the limit for this guy, and I think you're absolutely right. Him and Khamzat Chimaev are going to fight at some point.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Obviously, we're going to see these guys get paired up with some different people and some big names in the welterweight division as their careers progress, but 15-0 is very impressive, and when you're fighting at the level he's been fighting at for as long as he's been doing it, it makes sense as to why he's come over to the UFC and is having such success. We're going to see a pretty fast rise in him. I think when you have a guy who represents a country that is well underrepresented.
Yeah, first Kazakhstani fighter to ever be signed by the UFC.
Yeah, first Kazakhstan fighter, and I think he's representing well. He's going to become like one of the leading sportsmen in that country if he is able to continue growing like that. America is kind of spoiled with athletes because we have so many sports and so many high-level athletes here that it's hard for us to get behind one particular person.
Yeah.
We do it from time to time, but it is hard. When you have a country that maybe isn't the best in the Olympics, and maybe they don't have a ton of pro sports that are worldwide, but they get a fighter and they really start to shine and they start to do big things in the UFC, that country gets behind that fighter and they really run with him and they become like an ambassador of sport.
Yeah.
And they become like, you know, friends with the politicians, and they become a megastar in that country.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Rakhmonov could have happened to him in the coming years because he's so talented at fighting. It's only a matter of time before he's fighting for titles and in the top 5 or top 10 of the welterweight division.
Yeah, he certainly should have a number next to his name. Yeah. I think, and you know, him and Khamzat are kind of similar in the sense that neither one of them have fought high-level opposition, but we don't really need to necessarily see them against high-level opposition to know how good they are because we see the skill set that they possess, the depth that they possess. And M1 is no joke of a feeder league. The fact that he won the belt there at 25 years old says everything you need to know about how good he actually is, and he's only getting better. Yeah. He's at Sanford MMA right now. And, you know, you talk about some of these smaller countries or the ones that don't have a lot of representation in the UFC or in certain sports throughout the world. We lived in Jamaica for a couple of years, and that's a very similar country of less than 3 million people. But my God, when Usain Bolt was running, the entire island was shut down. I mean, there was not a single person in Jamaica that wasn't glued to the nearest TV, screaming their lungs out for an hour before he raced, the 10 seconds that he raced, or sub 10 seconds that he raced, and then an hour afterwards, and the celebrations continued throughout the night. So we kind of got to experience that in the sense of a great sprinter like Bolt. And it's really a beautiful thing to see when there's a country that's got a representative that's got a real shot at creating some history and seeing them get behind it. So I think Rakhmonov, being the first signee from Kazakhstan, might be that guy.
Yeah, and he's going to be avoided by a lot of the welterweights out there very quickly after that performance. One person that stuck out to me that I would love to see him in there with, it's not going to happen next, but maybe in a few fights, is Vicente Luque. I think that striking matchup would be a lot of fun to watch, and they both know what they're doing clearly on the ground. The 100% finishing rate comes about as even as you can possibly get it. Now it's 8 wins by knockout and 8 wins by submission, right? So he's now 16-0.
No, he would be 15, I think. So so it's 8-7. I think it was 7-7 going in, 8-7. Now, guys, correct me if we're wrong.
There's no way to find out that information, but we'll have to just go with that. And it's as even 50-50 as you can possibly get a record. The sky's the limit for Rakhmonov. I can't wait to see what he does next. They gave him a game opponent, and he just dismantled him in less than a round. I think that there's ways we can speed him up, just like Chimaev. And even though he's not quite as marketable, he doesn't have the English down just yet, I think there's something really special there, and I think the welterweight division is going to have a facelift in the next 18 months. We're going to see a whole new slew of guys in the top 5.
And a lot of their last names are going to end in OV and EV and whatever.
Yeah, they're going to come from that area of the world, where Russia, Kazakhstan, Dagestan, all those spots.
Man, for sure. Guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Drop us a comment and let us know what you think about Rakhmonov, and is he on a collision course with Chimaev? If you're new here and you like MMA content, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.